What's up guys, Merry Christmas, and I hope everyone has a really good New Year's. I think it's safe to say that it's been a really long year and there have been a lot of really good and really bad movies released as well, and I thought it would be fitting to start a tradition where I start to review my top 10 movies of the year at the very end of the year. Now this list is incredibly subjective and is in no way, shape or form correlate to the actual top 10 movies of this year. And obviously, I haven't seen every movie that's released this year. That's just physically impossible, especially for someone like me, an average moviegoer who isn't paid to watch movies or is a professional or real movie critic. But I have seen quite a lot, more than the average person, around maybe 30 or 40 to 50 movies this year, as you can see from my past videos and movie reviews that I have released. But I do believe there have been around, I think, 2 movies that I watched this year that I didn't review. But that's just something else. Whatever. The only movie that I have not seen in 2019 yet that I really want to review is Jumanji: The Next Level. And that's not because I don't think that movie will be on this list, but because I'm just way too busy on the 27th and the 28th, which are the days that come almost immediately after it releases here in Australia. But yeah, I've got some really exciting things planned for this channel in the future, and I will let you know in that video whether or not I think that movie belongs on this list. And before I get started on my top 10 movies of 2019, I want to give 2 honorable mentions to both Hotel Mumbai and Gemini Man, who didn't quite make this list. Now, Hotel Mumbai, because it was a really inspirational movie, it was based on a real life story and it was just very eye-opening. And Gemini Man, because, you know, a lot of people didn't like that movie, really hated it. I'm in the minority that actually enjoyed it because I feel like it was very emotionally impactful to me. And it was a very inspiring and touching movie as well. I mean, you kind of have to watch my reviews and my videos on them to kind of know what I'm talking about, because I'm definitely not going to go too in depth about that here. But yeah, moving on. Coming in at number 10, Gretl. Now a lot of people thought that this was a very average movie, and we've all seen it before, like the plot, 1,000 times again and again. But even so, I still really enjoy this movie because I thought it was a very unique take and unique spin on a kidnap slash thriller slash stalker movie, because nobody knew how capable this very elderly woman was. And both Isabelle Huppert and Chloe Grace Moretz performed outstanding in this movie. They were just really amazing to watch. Coming in at number 9, It Chapter 2. Now, even though I don't think this movie was as good as the first one, I still thoroughly enjoyed it, because it stayed true to the first movie and it was both funny and very intense, and I had an absolute blast watching this movie. The ending was pretty questionable, like the way it played out in the 3rd act, and the 2nd act didn't feel that coherent. Like it just felt like multiple clips kind of edited together, and while they were really great to watch and really intense and fun, they just didn't feel that coherent. Number 8, Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Now this is a very surprising movie because I didn't think that it will land in my top 10 of this year. Like, I'm not even a big fan of Pokemon. Like, I really like the concept of it, you know, and I used to like it as a kid, but that was back then when I was a kid. Now I just think the games are just overdone, boring, and childish. But, you know, that's just me, obviously. But what surprised me was how emotional it was and how well Ryan Reynolds performed in this movie. The ending really shocked me. Although I do feel like the story was kind of bland and there weren't enough Pokemon battles. Number 7, Us. After I saw Get Out by Jordan Peele, I was like, I need to see this movie, and it honestly did not disappoint. Now, I still feel like Get Out is one of my most favorite movies of the last few years, and yeah, I don't feel like this movie was as good as that movie, but it was still pretty good. I love psychological thrillers and movies that make you think, and this movie was exactly one of those. And Jordan Peele proves time and time again that movies don't have to be gory and bloody to be horror movies. Like, this is just a typical home invasion gone wrong. I also love the music in this movie, and the twist towards the end was really surprising, and it was great to kind of read like online what people thought about the twist and what it actually meant. In fact, it was so ambiguous that I had to go back a second time to watch the movie again, which I don't do too often. And you know, even though that was one of the positives for this movie, it was also one of its flaws because I feel like it was a little bit too ambiguous. And it was up to a point where it kind of did make sense at some point, and I didn't really feel that for Get Out. So that's that. Number 6, Green Book. Now this movie definitely deserves a spot in my top 10 because it was very wholesome. It was a very powerful and inspiring story about these two people with opposite personalities and the journey that they went with each other. And I gotta say, the best part of this movie was the character development. I absolutely loved the transition between the start of the movie and the end of the movie. It was a very inspiring movie to watch, and I don't say that enough about films. I'm usually an action type of guy or a superhero type of guy. Number 5, Spider-Man Far From Home. Now I'm just gonna cut to the chase. I'm a huge Marvel fan. I love superhero movies and the hype that surrounds them, and that's it. Well, Spider-Man is probably my most favorite superhero, and I actually don't mind Tom Holland's rendition of him. Even though I do prefer Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man more. I like an older Spider-Man. But anyway, I was still really excited for this movie because I actually really enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming. So, you know, I was naturally excited for this one. The fact that they went to Europe for this movie was just awesome, and I feel like this movie is ever so slightly better than Homecoming. Well, I mean, I feel like Homecoming did some aspects better, but this movie did other aspects better. It's hard to explain, but I also really like Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio in this movie. And I also love the fact that there were a lot of twists and turns as well, especially towards the end. And there was one scene in this movie that I felt was one of the best scenes in any movie I've ever seen. Number 4, Alita Battle Angel. Now I have very fond memories of this movie because, believe it or not, this was actually the first movie that I've ever reviewed. And if you look back at that movie review, that video, yeah, it was really scuffed. No color corrected video, using the internal microphone of the camera. Yeah, okay. But that's not the main reason why this movie was on this list. I really enjoy this movie. I never watched the anime, so I went into this completely blind, and this movie exceeded all my expectations. It was visually stunning, the action scenes were exhilarating and intense, the story was surprisingly dark and emotional, and I like the fact that the protagonists don't always win, and the action feels forgiving. But unfortunately, there are 3 movies that are slightly better than this one. Or should I say the 3rd movie in my list? Because I had a toss-up whether or not this movie was my number 4 or my number 3. But let's see what we have for my number 3. Ford vs. Ferrari. Now I love this movie because I feel like it relates a lot to why, you know, the movies Green Book and Hotel Mumbai are on my list. Because it is a very inspiring and eye-opening story. Like, you learn so much, and the timeline between the start and the end and what actually happens is just, you know, and what I like about it is that it's not just about the racing. There's a lot of a lot of character development, character growth, and I love that, you know, in movies. And I thought that Christian Bale and Matt Damon were outstanding. So, any guesses to what my number 2 and number 1 are? I think it's going to be pretty easy to guess. Coming at number 2, Avengers Endgame. Now I watched this movie 3 times, and I don't normally do that. I didn't even watch my number 1 movie more than once, and that's because I watched this movie more than once. You know, after watching this movie 3 times, I found out that, yeah, it gets less exciting every time, and it's just like at the end of watching it the 3rd time, I'm just like, yeah. You know, 1 time is enough. 2 times for like movies that are very ambiguous and cause you to think. But like after once you're like, oh, I already know this happens. Wow, that's so cool. Like it's very exciting the first time, and you get to see everything like the first time. It's very, very exciting, right? And then the second time you watch it, you're like, okay, I know what happens here. You know, it's not a surprise anymore. But I watched this movie 3 times because of the hype. You know, it's the culmination of everything Marvel's done over the last decade. I mean, it's the Endgame, so it's a huge movie. But personally, I still feel like Avengers Infinity War was slightly better, just because it had a cliffhanger. You know, it had you wanting more. But this movie, you know, it was the end. You expected it to end. So it's kind of less exciting in that way. But this movie was just, it was so big and it was so, like, exciting to watch as a Marvel fan. Especially that final battle. And don't get me started about all the memes that came after this movie. I strongly believe that this movie was the biggest movie of this year. Hands down. And as a Marvel fan, you know, this movie's definitely up there. It definitely deserves a spot in my top 10. But it didn't get my number 1 spot though. So what is my number 1 movie of 2019? Joker. Yep. Probably not a surprise there. Now, I'm not a big fan of DC. I like Marvel better. But I think Joker is probably one of my most favorite supervillains. And I thought that Heath Ledger's interpretation of him was really good. But, you know, Joaquin Phoenix, he was the one who made this movie for me. He was just amazing. And, you know, I had such high hopes for this movie. Which is really bad going to any movie, you know. You'd rather be the guy who's having lower expectations but then being blown out of the water, rather than the guy who has very high expectations but just let down. And, you know, because of hearing of how there was a standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival for this movie, I was really hyped up for it, and it really didn't disappoint. In fact, by the end of this, I kind of felt like standing up and clapping and cheering. It was just so dark. There were a lot of twists and turns, and it was just very carefully articulated as a movie. The cinematography was amazing. And even the little Easter eggs pointing towards the Batman movies, which I won't spoil right now, was really, you know, it was really awesome to see that reference. Even though other people were questioning it, I actually really enjoyed it. And it was a very realistic movie, you know, seeing Arthur Fleck's upbringing and what he had to go through, and, you know, which kind of warrants his actions, and you kind of side with the villain. And this was a movie that really made you think, and I love movies that are like those. The R rating of this movie, yeah, that definitely was the cherry on the cake, because if I was to reference back to another movie, a Marvel movie, Venom, you know, that PG-13 rating was kind of the reason why that movie kind of flopped, or at least why most people didn't like it. An R rating would have been really nice. But anyway, that's my top 10 movies of 2019. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Have you seen any of the movies listed? What did you think about them? Please leave a comment on your thoughts below. Like the video if you liked it, and sub if you want to see more. Also, feel free to check out my previous video. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I've got some really exciting things planned for this channel in the next few weeks. Until next time.